Hello, and welcome to the How to Exit podcast, where we introduce you to a world of small to medium business acquisitions and mergers. We interview business owners, industry leaders, authors, mentors, and other influencers with the sole intent to share with you what it looks like to buy or sell a business. Let's get rolling. And now a moment for our sponsors. I want to highly recommend you get Acquisition Aficionado magazine. Every month, Acquisition Aficionado magazine brings you tactics for business buying and selling you won't find anywhere else. Learn firsthand from industry leaders who share their success stories, featuring in-depth interviews and stories from leading figures in the business acquisition industry. This multi-platform mobile magazine speaks to acquisition entrepreneurs wherever they are in the journey. And I want you to visit acquisitionaficionado.com today. Hello and welcome to the How to Exit podcast. Today I'm here with Tina Bradley and we're going to discuss all things mergers and acquisitions coming from across the pond there in the UK area, right? So, yeah, so cool. Thank you for being here today. And why don't you tell everybody a little bit about yourself so we can kind of get the audience to get a feel for who you are, and we'll just start right there.
Sure. Well, thanks for inviting me, Ronald. It's a real pleasure. So, I guess right back to the beginning, I'm kind of a typical entrepreneur. My first business was when I was age 9. And I saw my father come out of the Royal Navy. He was in there for 23 years. And then he was looking for a side hustle. So I saw him try these different kind of small businesses, fail, try again, fail, and so on. And I kind of got the business bug from that age, from about the age of 9. And I set up my first little business, which was basically I saw my mother and sister could bake really well, do simple baking, cooking for parties. So I kind of wheeled them in and got them cooking. And I hand wrote a load of leaflets, put them out to their neighbors. And that was kind of a little business that I had at 9. Moving on from then, I mean, I left school at 16 because I was really, really keen to make my own money. So that's what I did. And I got involved in multi-level marketing and all sorts of different things like that. I actually went to university as a mature student in 1997 just to prove that I could do it. But still very keen to, I think I'm pretty much unemployable. I'm a typical entrepreneur. And then from then, I helped build an animal charity, animal sanctuary. That's one of my passions, animals. And also been involved in lots of different businesses, mainly online. I had about 200 different monetized websites at some stage. And then some worked, some didn't, some made money, some didn't. Offline businesses as well, various ones. And then I got into M&A about 4 years ago, 4.5 years ago now. And game changer really for me, and not doing all this startup stuff. When we all know kind of the growing pains and aches and all of that with that. So that's what I started concentrating on was M&A. And I was looking to be agnostic, kind of the first year. So I was getting to know my trade, finding out, about how things worked, and look at lots and lots and lots of different kinds of businesses. And then I focused on health and wellness, hair, beauty, wellness, self-care, that kind of industry. And that's really where I sort of acquiring a kind of a group. So that's kind of brought you, I don't know if that's too quick, but that brought you right up to, up to recently. And then obviously I exited that group.
Awesome, awesome. So early entrepreneur, I think I'm in the same boat as you. I was what I refer to jokingly, kind of hustling as a kid, selling anything I could find to sell, and bringing the erasers and stuff. I would go in town with the parents. We lived way out in the country growing up from fourth grade on, but you know, I tried to go work with my father, who was a entrepreneur, painting houses and doing remodels. Told me I was too young, so when he would go to work, I would take the push mower, and we lived 5 miles from town. I would take the push mower and just walk it into town and go door to door and see if people let me mow their lawn. So I worked with him for years. But yeah, it's a lot of entrepreneurs are one of two things: either accidental entrepreneurs, meaning that they were an employee, they were doing something on the side, it started taking off, and they started doing it full time, or you're just natural born entrepreneur and you can't do much else, right? I've had W-2 jobs. They usually last a year or 2 before I tell the CEO what I think.
We are unemployable completely.
It's both a blessing and a curse. I still have the startup bug occasionally. There's still certain things, if I can't find it to buy it up, my goal is, or my desire is to build it. You still find that occasionally? Where you're like, "Man, there's not one in the market. I should probably just go start this thing."
Yeah, tempted. I mean, I've set up a consultancy now, so you could call that a startup, I guess. It's got all the same, processes of the website, building up, building your brand and all that kind of stuff. So yeah, I guess I am doing it again. Yeah.
My wife wanted me to buy her a particular type of business. She's in the food trade, and there's just not one around here. It's like, hey, it's not that expensive. It seems to be a pretty profitable market space. It's in the food truck type of scenario. But I was like, let's just, if you really want to do it, run the numbers, show me the numbers, and we'll just build it. And
Yeah.
so now I'm in another build a startup type of thing, just because there's none for sale in that space she wants to be in.
There is
You,
a certain amount of excitement though. When you start something, brand new, there is, kind of excitement to it.
As an investor, you and I are both been around long enough to know that as an investor, you're supposed to be seeking out what's called asymmetrical risk, right? Where the reward is way worth more than the risk. And if you really look at the statistical numbers behind starting businesses, it's not asymmetrical as you would probably need as a normal investor. You have to be pretty risk inclined. If you're realistic, problem is most entrepreneurs aren't realistic. They don't want to look at the long-term statistics. They always think they're the chosen one that can to do that repeat, you know, 1 in 1,000 win. So let's talk about, like, you got into this space 4 years ago, you made some acquisitions. What did those look like? Because 'Cause we're gonna lead up to your exiting those. What did the acquisitions look like? What type of deals were they?
Okay, so I focus, as I said, I kind of was agnostic, and then I thought this isn't working for me. I'm kind of all over the place. So I saw that there were a lot of hair and beauty salons that were available and pretty cheap. And I thought, instead of looking for kind of the deals that are making 1 million EBITDA and whatever, why don't I just acquire lots of little hair and beauty salons, kind of with the turnover of about 500,000, and then just build up kind of a group of those. The thought behind it was, wait 5 or 6 years, build up about 20, and then exit either through private equity or something like that. So that's what I started to do. I started looking at the hair and beauty sector in and around London. I wouldn't go further than, I live in central London, very, very central. Oxford Street is literally a 1 minute walk from me. I don't know if you're familiar with London, but that is pretty central. And you can't keep a car here, they make it impossible. So I wouldn't, I wasn't looking at anything more than an hour from central London on the train. So I could jump on the train within an hour, I'd be wherever. So yeah, I started looking at these businesses, and everybody tells you not to go near brokers. And I completely agree. The big brokers are an absolute nightmare. In my experience, it's just kids that they employ that have just come out of university, and they give them a job. They know nothing about business. They're just teaching them to, sell, get, money up front for these poor businesses that really do want to sell, and they're in bad hands. So I dealt with small business brokers, and I built up rapport with them as well as the sellers. So I wanted deals that were all deferred payments. And so I managed, persuade the brokers that that was a thing. And they actually well, at least one of them persuaded one of the sellers to actually go with me rather than someone else. So that was a win.
That's interesting. I haven't looked at the hair and beauty space. I have kinda started looking into the nail salons because 'cause they're just cash cows. I like big profit margin companies, and I jokingly say just in case I'm not as great as an operator as I think I am, the higher the profit margin, the higher the error margin, so you can make a few mistakes that doesn't hurt the business too bad. It's kind of a joke, but it's kinda true. But what do hair salons look like? Talk to me about the hair salon. Are they high profit margins? Were you in the chair rental business? 'Cause I was in the real estate space, and I almost
Mm.
bought 2 hair salons, but not because I knew anything about hair. It's because I seen them. They were renting booths is what they were. It was a big facility. They had a brand, a lady that worked there answering phones, but the majority of their money was made from booth rental, right? They were
Yeah.
charging X number of $100 per chair.
Yeah. I mean, that's really big in the US. It does happen here, but it's not as big. And I'm finding that because I really immerse myself in the industry, kind of social media groups, getting to know
Mhm.
other salon owners, that kind of thing. And yeah, I'm finding that salon owners are starting to move back to the traditional, we call it PAYE. I don't know what you call it in the States, but you're on the payroll, you pay taxes, you're not self-employed. So I'm finding that they're going back there. So we did just a PAYE model the whole time. I think what's happening here with the chair rental is that people, you can't build up. your brand because, these people can move around whenever they want to. It's not very stable. You don't earn as much from them. Obviously, you don't have to pay their taxes, but what's happening in the UK is they're really stamping down on these kind of small little businesses within a business. And quite a few have been hit. A few businesses have been hit by the tax office and saying, well, actually, that person was employed by you because they were in there for set many hours. They didn't just walk in and out whenever they wanted to. You had this agreement that so therefore they are employed. And now that they are charging businesses, all the tax that they should have paid for this employee. So people are getting a bit, creeped out by it, scared by it, and quite rightly. And staying away from that model.
It's interesting. I met a guy in, Tulsa, of all places, which is a central United States. He had acquired 6, what they call quick cuts or whatever. They're haircut places, but it's both
Mm.
unisex, both men and women come in. So they don't do a lot of the beauty style, like deep perms and stuff. It's basically wash and trim is probably the category I would look at. So they basically they get you in and out fast is kind of it's like Supercuts and some of these other name brands, but he'd bought 6 of them and he was doing really well with them. And I was curious, and he wasn't in the booth rental business. That's the one thing I thought he was an outlier because all the people cutting in his places, they had benefits and they had W-2 jobs, and that's the reason they were there. They just were tired of renting a booth and trying to figure it out on their own. So it's an interesting model. Is the profit margin on a hair salon pretty decent or
It should be 20%. When I took over these salons, it wasn't. So we made sure we brought it up to 20%. The problem with these salons is, they're very fragmented, obviously. There's
Mhm.
lots of owner operators there. So I didn't look at owner operator businesses. I just looked at businesses that actually have managers already in. Because usually when you lose the owner operator, you use a massive amount of, all the clients and everything else. So kind of that's so that narrowed down the field.
Yeah.
But, when the owner left, because that's obviously what they want to do, they didn't take a huge chunk of business with them.
So interesting is I did the marketing plan for a young lady who had a hair salon business and helped her get a new loan to expand into a new location. I was a marketing coach back then, doing business coaching and marketing coaching. So I helped her do her marketing plan and her business plan to get a new loan, get her moved. She did sell. She exited it in 2 years or so. She got sued by the previous owner. I won't say her name here just because I do like her and I don't want to bring any dirt into her world. She got sued by the previous owner because the owner said that some of her clients were, still going to her to get stuff done and that she had a non-compete, and I started thinking about that. I know my wife and a lot of other people are really loyal to the person that cuts their hair, and they go
Course.
wherever that person goes, well, no matter what salon they move to.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, we have sort of contracts in place where if somebody leaves, they're not allowed to. I mean, if the client wants to go with them, I mean, they've all got Instagram these days. They can easily follow them. But actually reaching out and trying to take the customer with them, or that we have it in the contract that they're not allowed to do that. I mean, at the end of the day, the business is paying for, the rents and all the other expenses. And for hairdressers, kind of just take them away home, some work from home and so on. I don't know. It's a very kind of unfair business in that respect, I think. I can understand both sides, but yeah, it is an issue.
She'll let somebody, do the trim, right? They take the split ends off the ends, but so I'm curious. I'm always curious about industries where there's extreme loyalty to the skill set of the operator and or the employees, and hair salons is definitely one of those. I cut my own hair. I've got lazy. I've got hair right now. Usually I'm shaved. Just got lazy and haven't clipped my hair this week. But prior to that, I don't ever remember. I'm prior military too. Like I just walked in to wherever the barber was and said, "Cut it shorter." But I know that it's not the same with most other people. Anybody with vanity and anybody with some sense of vanity, because I do not apparently have that, and most women, right? Most female really, and we put so much stock in that. I'm
We do.
curious I'm so curious about how do you deal with industries like the hair salons or something where the loyalty may not be with the brand or with the company or even sometimes the owner. What do you I'm always curious in this space. I get what they're doing and it's a brilliant business, but how do you deal with that? How do you deal with like the customers always wanting to go where the employees are?
Well, I was lucky in the respect that the businesses that I acquired without All of them, actually. All of the, girls have been there like 15, 16, 20 years.
Ah,
So what obviously, they build up it's like a family,
mm.
and the thought of moving from that is pretty horrendous for them. So you just make sure obviously they're paid well, we always pay them a basic plus commission, perks, and all this kind of stuff. So you just make sure that they're very happy where they are, that they're amongst family, if you like. But and the thought of leaving that family is just awful to them. They just wouldn't even consider it.
So what I'm hearing is the culture is critical
Yeah,
inside of that small environment. It's kinda like a micro environment inside of a bigger business because 'cause you're buying multiple locations, and each one of them is gonna have their own family vibe. You're not gonna try to merge cultures in that scenario because you would be ruining what really makes those individual locations unique to them. Yeah.
absolutely. And this is why you're finding that this we call it chair rental rather than
Mhm.
booth rental. Chair rental is not working because you're not building up that culture within the small salon. You're always going to be having transient people just moving around all the time because you're not building up that culture.
I'm surprised that I learned I used to have a real estate business, and I used to owner finance most of my houses off, and one of the guys trying to buy one of the houses was a barber in our town, a Hispanic barber, and I'm like, "There's just no way you can qualify for a 15-year note with me. I don't think you'll make enough money." And he's like, "Well, I make 6 figures," and this is Tulsa, Oklahoma. Like, "You're not making 6 figures cutting hair." He's like, "Yeah, I work in a high-end salon. We charge $40 a cut. I get to keep 80% of it, 20% goes to the chair until I pay a certain amount, and then I get more, right?" They
Mhm.
had a system there where I can switch over to chair rent, and I was like, I went over and got my hair cut there, like, I had them trim my beard and stuff, and it still was shaved at the time, and I seen it. I watched that store, and it was busy, and people lined up. I was the only guy there that could not speak fluent Spanish, but I just wanted to see the environment, and
Mm.
there was I asked the owner there, I said, 'cause I'm, like I said, insanely curious. What does the average barber here make? And he goes, "If they can't bring enough clients to do 70 to $80,000 a year, they can't have their chair anymore. We're a high-end location. We do excellent work, and people expect that, and they line up to come here." So I could see that these could be a little profitable business. I never thought about how profitable cutting hair could be, but I see it on the women's side, right? Because it's $300 for to get your hair dyed, but,
When you aesthetics as well. When you get an aesthetics doctor or nurse in there, then we're talking about, the Botox and the lip fillers and all that kind of stuff.
mhm.
Then, visit is like about £500. Boom, 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 10 minutes. So yeah, that's
So you
that's
were
really
doing
a
beauty
problem.
spa treatments and stuff too then. I had another gentleman friend of mine, he sold it, but he was in the medical spa business, and he drove the nicest Jag I'd seen in a while, so he had to be doing alright.
Very, very tough business. I mean, in the UK, I mean, London, I can walk to, gosh, I live near Harley Street. So,
Mm,
I mean, there's hundreds and hundreds. It's very, very competitive, but I think
mhm.
that's going to go well soon because, again, the government's stepping in and they're going to stop people. MVQ is kind of like a qualification in the UK, non-vocational qualification, it's called. And at the moment, they're letting people with just a couple of years' experience just go and inject people in the face, which is going horribly wrong. So I think they're gonna change that, and it's just gonna be doctors and nurses, which is a good thing. And so that's gonna reduce the competition. But that's definitely an industry to look towards for anybody interested in that sector. Absolutely.
I'm pretty sure here in the United States for the medical spas, they are medical staffed, either RN or like I know a guy that was called me up and said he might sell me his IV, a mobile IV bar. And if you know what that is, they do bring in IVs that have vitamin B12 and all that. And the reason it was expensive is here nurses are hard to come by. There's a lot of traveling nurses jobs here that pay extremely well, 90 bucks an hour or more. And that's pretty much who is the only person that's allowed to place RV, the IVs. You have to have at least one. I think you had to have one RN on staff, and the rest of them could be techs of some sort. But yeah, it gets real expensive real fast here because you have to have medical licenses to do injections here.
Yeah, it's going that way here. Definitely.
And maybe it should. What do you do with it? So I I love the idea of the nail salons just because the funny thing was the reason I got interested in nail salons is I like to play a little poker occasionally. And one of the guys that used to donate to me all the time, bring in cash left and right, he owned 3 nail salons. It's like and he lost a lot of money playing poker. So I'm, like, always wondering, "What the hell is this guy doing? Where's he coming up with all this cash?" And turns out he owns a nail salon. Then I started looking at a few of them, and The problem with the nail salon side anyway is it's mostly a cash business,
Yeah.
and it's hard to find one with clean books and clean taxes, and I don't wanna induce any more problems into my life than I already have, so I had to stay with that. Did you see a little bit of that in the hair salon when you're evaluating these companies is they say, "Well, here's what's on the books," and then they try to tell you it makes a lot more money over here that doesn't make the books?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, within the salons, we had a beautician who did nails, massages, facials, pedicures.
Mhm.
I did look at nail and, I was interested in anything in the health, sorry, the wellness and self care business. So I looked at quite a few nail bars, and yeah, there is a cash thing. I think that's going to change because they gradually get rid of cash. But I would just say to them, look, this is what's on the books. If I went to a bank tomorrow, they would not lend me any money based on what you're telling me here. I'm sure it's absolutely true, but that you can't have it both ways. You can't, have all this cash and not pay tax on it and then expect when you sell your business to get the full amount. So that was kind of I didn't get those businesses, but that was, my kind of offering to them, you
So,
know.
I'm really, really against getting away from
Yeah.
cash, and the real reason is the only person that's truly pushing that are governments and banks, and the banks are motivating the governments to push it.
Yes.
If I pay you in cash and I hand you a $100 bill for your services, and you go it's still $100. And when you go to pay the guy at the market for his farm fresh fruits and vegetables he grew for you, and you hand him $100, it's still $100. Now when he goes buy his kids' clothes and he, spends $100, it's still $100. I come to you and I give you on my credit card, and I give you $100, you lose 1.5 to 3% of that, so you get
Yeah.
$97, right? And then you go and buy the fruit and give him 100 bucks. Now you came out of pocket for $3 because you had, still, and he still only gets $97. The only people that truly make money by getting away with not doing cash anymore are the banks, and the credit
Sure.
card processing banks, and the government for control, because at that point, there is no more side gigs, side hustles, and money that's not paid taxes on, which is not a
Right.
bad thing. We should all pay our fair due. But that said, and then we argue, if we don't like what we pay, we should elect different officials to make that work better. But that said, I'm not a fan of that whatsoever. I think it's a bad idea just because it devalues money so fast in the transaction. If you look at the normal lifespan of how a dollar travels, it only takes, I think, 6 or 7 hops before it becomes insignificant as to the value of the dollar.
Yeah. No, I completely agree. And also, the control thing. The thought of going kind of nearer, I suppose the lockdown thing, COVID thing kind of shook
Mhm.
me up a bit. The fact that governments could literally just close down your money supply is terrifying. And then you go to the Chinese social system or whatever. No, I don't. I agree with you. I don't think it's a great way. But it seems to be people want convenience these days. That's what they want. They just want to carry a card away, and they don't want to get cash out the cash point. So it's very difficult. I think there are some folks here that are fighting against going cashless, which is a good thing. But no, I completely agree, Ronald. It's not a great idea.
If the only way it would work in the long run is if it's decentralized, some form of crypto version. Not the current ones, there's so much corruption, it has to be regulated, but some decentralized monetary system. But everybody that touches it's gonna want a fee on it. So I don't know how it
Yeah.
doesn't, and if you look at it logically and say, yeah, in the real world that happens too, because if I pay you $100, you pay taxes on that, but you also probably save some of it. And you don't usually spend a full 100 if you're a good
Yeah.
steward of money. So it does take some money out of circulation, and that's the argument that I've heard from people when I give them the argument of the devaluing of the dollar when you use credit cards. And he's like, well, typically, if everybody was behaving correctly, that dollar wouldn't travel that far either. Right? That said, there are this industry and a lot of industries that are cash laden, so where they're just really a cash business here. They're so cash ridden here that they're actually often audited more often because they're often used for things like money laundering and stuff.
Yeah. 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 I'm surprised they're not more often. There is a theory that there's a thing called Turkish barbers. We've got a
Mm.
lot, huge over the States, a lot of immigration coming in. And all of these little Turkish barbers have sprung up and they're always empty. And the theory is, it's a money laundering operation. And it's funny, but the police and the HMRC, that's the tax office, never seem to investigate them. It's very strange. But we all kind of, what's going on with these places? They're always empty. They can't be making money. So,
Let's go into so you acquired multiple, right? 3, 4, 5 of these, and then at some point you decided to go ahead and take the exit. What was the did they reach where you wanted them to go and that's why you exited, or what was the catalyst to saying, "Okay, I think it's time to sell now?"
I was hearing people doing consulting for equity, and I kind of, I discovered I don't mind operations if I've built the business myself.
Mhm.
But what I really enjoy was operations of businesses that I've acquired. I really don't enjoy that side of it. And I suppose if I carried on and built it a bit more, I could have got an operations director and all that kind of stuff. But a typical entrepreneur, a few years down the line, I'm thinking, I think this consulting for equity thing would be a good idea for me. I'm thinking of kind of being a nomad and traveling around with my little dog, different places. So it just kind of, when you get a feeling, you think, "Yeah, this is probably the right time."
Do you know
Um,
I was gonna say, do you know I'm a digital nomad, right?
yeah, no, I didn't
So
realize that.
this is a portable studio. This is a 10-foot by 10-foot, studio that I soundproofed an old shipping container, it's pretty new. So it's got a door and a window, and the big shipping container door's open on one side, but it was cut at 10 feet, and the wall was shortened, and then I have 3 inches of foam insulation. Our house is a triple axle, 30-foot tiny home with, 2 lofts and a daybed, where my it's 340 square foot, something like that, to where my 13-year-old son, my 8-year-old daughter, my wife, and I all live in there. So, but and we've moved around. We've been in Texas, around Lake Lavon and Dallas. We moved back to Oklahoma when we were in COVID. We started in Oklahoma, so we went Oklahoma, Texas, back to Oklahoma, and now we're out here in California in the redwood forest. But we can, I don't even own a truck to haul the stuff anymore. When I'm ready to move, we just hire a transport company. They come grab it
Oh,
all and go set it up at the new location because it's just more
I-
reasonable than we're usually somewhere 2 or 3 years. So it's more reasonable to do that than it is to, like, own a big diesel dually or something that's big enough to haul this stuff, for years when you're only gonna need it, once every few years.
great idea. Yeah. Now I'm thinking, I mean, obviously in the UK, it gets we have long, long, long. It seems to get longer as I get older. Long winters. Maybe spend some time in Spain. Maybe spend some time in Thailand. Just kind of move around a bit and get some sunshine. So with this consulting thing, I can live anywhere. It'll all be done fantastically, via Zoom or whatever.
Yeah, I don't get into anything I can't handle from Zoom. I would not acquire anything in the six-figure, seven-figure mark that where, number 1, if I needed to go there and run it, that I couldn't drop everything, go there and run it for at least 90 to 180 days, just because that's what it takes to replace 4 months, 6 months, sometimes a year to replace a good CEO or general manager. So, I still believe that in my heart and soul is, like, if we acquire something, I have to understand that if I'm the lead on this thing and that's my name on the line and it's my acquisition, then I might have to drop everything and go run it. So I spend a lot of time with what you're talking about. I do contract for equity. I work on other people's projects where they're doing acquisitions and stuff, and I help them source deals and get things done for equity and for pay. And that's kind of the realm I'm in. So we're in the same boat there.
Yeah.
So how did the exit go? What was the process that you went through? Did you list with brokers? Like, tell us about, like, kind of the catalyst that made the decision to go forward and what the process looked like.
Yeah. So, well, the decision, just a bit more freedom, and like you say, what you've just said, if something happens, then you've got to go back in and sort things. I don't want to do that. I don't want to be an owner anymore.
Mm,
I consult, be part of the equity deal, and so on, and have that freedom to move around wherever I want to be. So, looking at the exits, I had a couple of. I mean, I inherited some managers that kind of didn't work out, and so I brought in new ones who were really, really good. Most people in the industry, they're not business people. They just, they understand the hair industry. They could do basic stock ordering, that kind of stuff. And so what I did is I put in systems and processes to make things super, super easy. This is what you do. This is how you do that. Da, 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 da. Here are your KPIs, so on. So that's what I did for them. And I kind of gave them the confidence to think that they could actually run this show. And that's what I did. I said to them, it was management buyouts, basically. I didn't go for any brokers. I didn't list it for sale outside. I just said, you can do this. I've shown you how you can do it. Everything here is in, in Google Drive, everything you need, manuals, everything.
Mhm.
You could do it. And that's it, just giving them the confidence to think, "Yeah, yeah, I can. It's not I don't need to be just a manager," because they have this real fear. A lot of people don't know about business, have this real fear, of taking something on and the responsibility and, it's terrifying. So I think it's that rapport again, just building up their confidence, and showing them everything's in place. I always say, "So I'm still available. Give me a call. You need any help with anything. I'm happy to help anytime."
Now on the management buyout, did you do a structured deal where you're paying you over time?
Yes. All deferred payment. Yeah.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
now they have both the world that they own the business, and if they get themselves in a spot, you have a vested interest in seeing them succeed, so that's the best way to enable a manager buyout is say, "Look, yeah, I want you to buy me out. We're gonna do this over time. I have a vested interest in that you succeed, you grow, and you continue to prosper. Otherwise,
Yeah.
you're not gonna be paying me back." And that's a great I'm a big fan. Here in the United States, we do a thing called, ESOPs, employee stock ownership programs. And I think it's an awesome way to get the employees to have some ownership in the game too. The managers typically end up owning more shares than the individuals do. In those situations, it's done by salary. But I'm a big fan of the employees taking and understanding ownership in the company.
We
Um,
have a similar here, I think. Can't remember the name it's called now, but yeah, but I just went straight to the managers. I thought I didn't want to complicate things
yeah.
with all of them. I just, because it was new for me too doing this management buyout. So I just, I thought, well, I've trained you. I know what you're capable of. I know, you can continue this business, not run it into the ground. And you got me on the end of a phone as well. So it was kind of win-win. Also personal guarantees, obviously, put those in place as well.
Now, did you ever think about doing, what I used to refer to this, I don't know if I coined the phrase or one of my guests did, it's called acquire to retire. So, what he was doing, and I nicknamed it this, I think I'm the one that nicknamed it on the show with him, but he was acquiring companies doing what you were doing, but when he did the seller finance, when he sold it off to the general manager, he would sell them 70% and stay on
Okay.
as a board member. So now he got to focus on buying new ones, getting a good
Yeah.
manager in place, training them and overseeing that manager, selling them 70%, and then he gets a 30% dividend from that business, and he goes buys another one. So, that was
Cool.
one of the ways because he wanted to stay in the industry. You may or may not have wanted to be in the industry anymore. But, it also gave him kind of he built his own board with some
Mm,
of those managers, so now he just does board calls. I teased him, said, "You're" 'cause he's buying more now. I was like, "You're doing the acquire to retire." And, it's like a lot of people, sell to retire, and you're going out and buying more business so that your retirement is there. But
yeah.
I said he buys good running businesses in his space, make sure that, finds somebody usually at the company that would be a general manager, puts the systems and processes like you did, where everything's documented, everything's whatever. And I think, because a lot of them are afraid of doing the taxes and what all the,
Yeah.
other stuff, the lawyers and all that. He's like, all I do is I build all that up. I say, here's your attorney, here's your tax person, here's this, if you need to change them, come talk to me because we're using the same person for all my other businesses. Yeah. Right. But
Mm,
other than that, you own 70% of it at the end of your acquisition and he sells them off. And I thought that was brilliant because now he gets
absolutely.
to spend the minority. It's the asymmetrical risk thing I was talking about earlier. He got money out of all of it. And he gets a retirement income off his holdings.
No, fabulous. Like it.
Cool. So let's build the ideal customer for you now. Who is it that you would love to do the consulting for equity for? What do you bring to the table and what is it that you would like to do for these companies?
Sure. So I'm looking at small companies, turnover 500K up to 5 million. Companies that are stuck. I found a lot of companies that was, stuck at a certain level and don't know how to progress from there. Companies that need turning around and also companies that want to prepare for exit.
Mhm.
So it's not me, I'm building up a very, very capable team and I don't get involved with anybody who hasn't been in business for considerable amount of time. I get approached by people who've been in the corporate life, do consulting and so on, and that's not what we do. I want someone who's been in the weeds, who's done, been there, done that, can talk to businesses on the same level rather than someone who's been employed by a big corporation. So that's the kind of person where, as I said before, I was always looking at, London and the surrounding area, but now it's worldwide, digital nomad. We can go anywhere. So that's the kind of businesses that we're looking to work with at
It's
the moment.
interesting. I take a different, a little bit of different approach because I don't mess with turnarounds. You have to be in business a long time. And what I'm
Mm,
always looking for is you've heard this word acquisition, and you know that growing your company through acquisition seems like a good idea, but you don't know where to start. Like I'll come
yeah,
in, I'll source the deal, I'll help you build your buyer's profile, I'll source the deals for you. I'll even start the initial calls, build rapport with the potential seller, and then you're going to pay for the attorneys, you're going to pay for the due diligence, you're going to do due diligence. These are corporate to corporate mergers and acquisitions. Like you're going to pay for the due diligence. I get equity in the company and I get a piece of the transaction. I get a bonus every time you close something. But I don't touch turnarounds if you're not up and running and successful. You need to get that taken care of before we go out and look for other companies for you to acquire. I had one gentleman, I just had to look, you just told me you're running your company down. I'm not going to help you acquire other businesses to put them on your
help.
trajectory. You need to fix your
Yeah,
trajectory first, right? And, if you can show
absolutely.
me sometimes the business owner can show you what, "Look, if I acquire this, it would fix the problem," because they've identified their key source of the problem, and maybe an
Mm,
acquisition would be the solution. But
cool.
often it's not. Often it's the industry changed and they failed to adapt. So,
Yeah. No, I mean, I've got a brilliant turnaround expert, as part of the team. So that's why I would never touch turnarounds before. I would never touch distress. But, I'm fully confident that this person, he's got so much experience in it and lots of success. So
are you currently do you have slots open right now? So, if somebody's listening to this right now, they fit that. Are you open right now for taking on new ones? Or are you getting pretty full up?
yeah, no, open for just getting started really, because
Mm.
I only exited last month. And
Oh,
so just getting started, the website, building my brand now and
mhm.
then getting really, really, really good partners on board because, I'm very keen not to just for it just to be me. I want some excellent partners on board. So I'm looking for people who've got great success stories with turnarounds and, scaling and all that sort of thing, as well as obviously companies that need that. I really want to build a solid team.
I think
Really,
you have a new skill that through your hair salon business that's really critical for most businesses. The ability to identify a general manager and train them and get the systems and process to the point where they could become the owner
yeah,
is hands down one of the critical skills anybody that's looking to exit needs. They need to figure out nobody wants to buy I'm not saying nobody, most people don't want to buy a company where they have to jump in and be the CEO and there's no backup whatsoever. It's so much easier to sell that company if you have at least somebody that could operate as a general manager and maybe that can run the thing.
sure.
Your
Yeah, you're up a much higher finding a buyer then. Absolutely.
yeah.
Yeah.
Your ability to do that, to look at a company and go, okay, we need systems and processes for X, Y, and Z, standard operating procedures for this. We need a really strong manager with the potential manager buyout owner capabilities. It would be critical for any of the clients you bring on just because now they have something that's marketable at a higher rate, right?
Yeah.
Somebody like me or somebody who wants to do multiple acquisitions and buy things and have somebody else run it can look at it and go, you know what? Give that general manager a little bit of a boost and a regular call and maybe even an external coach other than just me. Hire them a CEO coach to make sure that they're on track. And all of a sudden, I don't need to put 40 hours a week over there.
Yeah, absolutely. And the other thing with my experience with the acquisitions, because as we touched on before, the rapport thing. I mean, I had one particular acquisition. I went to go and see it, and a guy said to me, we were talking, and I said, "Have you had much interest?" Because this was listed with a small broker.
Hmm.
And I said, "Much interest?" And he said, "Yeah, we've agreed to a sale." And so I said, "Well, what am I doing here then?" So he said, "Well, I like the sound of you." He said, "And I looked because I have my website, which is all geared towards the hair beauty sector,
Hmm.
LinkedIn, all of that stuff." He said, "And like I said, going back to what we said, it's like a family." And his wife actually ran the salon for 18 years. He said, "And they are like family to us, and we want them to be looked after. We want someone who knows what they're doing." He said, "So if you want it, I'll sell it to you rather than this guy who had no experience or whatever. I mean, I had no experience in the industry when I started, but I quickly learned. So I got that deal through rapport, and chatting to this guy. We're about the same age, we like the same music, all that kind of stuff. So that rapport thing's really so, so important. It
Talk
is.
about that, let's talk about that because you just said something, you're about the same age and you like the same music. I promise you there's 1,000, listeners that are gonna hear this and they're gonna go, "I've never asked any of my sellers what music they listen to." So many people miss the ball on rapport. It's not about just talking about the company and the financials. You wanna build a rapport, you have to get into their world. How do you build
Absolutely.
rapport? What does your process look like that a lot of it for us, it just comes natural, but
It
intentionally,
is
what
not.
do you do to build a rapport?
Well, it is natural. I am naturally interested in people. So it's just one of those things. I'll ask questions, about somebody I'll meet in the shop. Yeah, I don't just start talking to random strangers. That would make me crazy. But, people I meet, I'm just interested about their life, where they're from, and all this kind of thing, and trying to find a commonality. This is outside of business. I just really, really enjoy doing that. And I mean, this guy, the music thing came from because we went for a drink in the pub next to the salon after we'd had a look. And he had this bag, which was a Lambretta.
Mhm,
Now, I'm not that old, but the second wave of mods, I don't know if you're aware of mods, I do remember those. And so I said, "Oh, we are the mods, we are the mods." And boom, right away, we connected,
mhm,
with that big thing. And then we started about music and everything else. And it's funny because I only dealt with him initially, and then his wife, who actually ran the salon and owned the salon, because she was afraid of dealing with business people. And he said to her, "Oh, no, you're fine with Tina. She's very down to earth. She's normal." I mean, still go for drinks with these guys and
mhm.
everything else. We really, really well. And that was a deferred purchase as well, by the way. Everything was deferred. So yeah, it's just, it does come naturally to me. And I'm trying to think if it doesn't come naturally to someone, just try to find that commonality really. Just do a bit of research on I don't normally do a bit of research on them. Like I say, I just want to know all about them when I meet them. But I guess if you looked at their social media, what they're up to, if they've got any social media, all that kind of thing. And even where they come from. Oh, you're from there. Well, I know somebody who was from there, or I've been there, or I went there once, or I lived there. Those kind of things where you just have to find that connection.
Yeah.
I think it's so important.
I like to do that on the first call with a business owner. One of the first things I do is just like, okay, well, there's a lot of things we're going to need to get through to get this deal done. Let's just start really cool with tell me what you built. And then they tell you, and I no, okay, cool. Why did you build it? So I get to hear the story. And then, like, they'll bring in stuff along the process, like they got married at a certain time. Oh, you just said you got married. Tell me about your wife. And like, do you have kids? You guys have kids? I have kids. And it just naturally, it's like a normal, natural conversation. You said you won't talk about the strangers in the the bar or I'll talk to you. I'm just the opposite. You can't stand in line in front of me or behind me without me at least trying to start a conversation. It's mostly because I'm curious. But I've been known for walking into bars and restaurants and like coffee shops and stuff. And within 20 minutes, the owner's sitting back there with me, chatting with me. It's just because I'm insanely curious.
Yeah.
Probably told this story on the pod already once, but I walked into a coffee shop. My wife was with me, and the owner, I didn't know she was the one waiting on me. It was a new coffee shop I'd never been, right beside a co-working space. Had a new kind of modern feel and vibe to it, and I drink high-end, good quality teas, I don't drink coffee. So when I walk in, I, like, look at their tea menu, do they have some type of matcha or they have something that I can drink that's tea-based, even if it's just chai or something, and, so I ordered my tea and, I asked the lady, I said, "So, just exactly this seems pretty busy, do you guys see, what, 100 or 200 people here today?" She's like, "No, about 400." It's like, "Cool," and the next thing I know is, like, when we were chatting, I was like, I told her, I said, "If you get a moment, like, if it's not too busy, come hang out with me. I'm a business owner myself. I'm just curious what you built here." Next thing I know,
Mhm.
there's she's back there, and about 5, 10 minutes into the call, she's like, or the call, but the sit down, she said, "I don't think I've ever told anybody this much about my business. How do you do this?" Because I figured out and it wasn't like I'd say, "How much do you make?" I was like, "Well," I would go, "You said you have about 4 or 500 customers through here a day. That's a lot." So there was, there's no risk of that. I'm just insanely curious.
Yeah, another great question. I think when you're speaking to a seller is what they're going to do next.
Yeah.
Get quite excited for them. I'm going to travel around the world, or I'm going to do this, or spend more time with my grandkids. All these things. That's one of the first questions I ask them. So, when you get all this money or whatever, when you sell your business, what's next? What are you going to do? And I get quite excited with them for what they're going to do. And it helps you actually structure the deal because once you know what their life goal is, the next stage of their life, then you can structure it. That's going to help them. Win win.
I have an awkward sense of humor, and I can ask people questions that they get that I'm kind of in jest. It's intended to be slightly funny, but I wanna know the answer. So I get away with a lot of stuff, so it's not uncommon for me to be on the on a call with a business owner and say, they've already told me what they built, and then right when they get done with what they're built, before they find out, like, what are they gonna do next, I always say, "Out of all the people you could be spending your day with, what has you on the phone with a guy who does investments and buys and sells company? What has you on the phone with a guy like me?" And I'm trying to figure out
Yeah,
why they wanna sell, and then
sure.
once we get that down, I'm like, that leads into what are they gonna do next? Because usually during the, why are you on the phone with a guy that buys or on a Zoom call with a guy who buys and sells business, they'll tell you they got this other project or they wanna retire and spend time with their grandkids, and you just dive deep into that. I think it's coming around now, at least in my circles, because that's we talk about it constantly. A lot of the guys coming out of the new programs and coming out of ETA, entrepreneurship through acquisition from college level, they're missing the report piece. They dive into the first call and they go, "Well, how much does the company make? When can you send me the financials? Do you have an NDA? I have an NDA." And they've got this checklist and they wonder why they don't get deals done.
Trust isn't being built up as well. People got to trust you. At the end of the day, but a small business, it is their baby. If you've ever built up a small business, you'll understand that. They put their blood, sweat, tears, everything for this business. And they've got to trust you, especially if they want the team to be looked after. Trust is a massive thing. And rapport does that, I think.
So you've built rapport. When do you start talking about business side of it? So you've got the rapport built and they kind of you kinda know it's somewhere you go. How do you actually introduce the conversation from, "Hey, we're just getting to know each other," to the point where you're going, "Okay, now I kinda have to see the financials. I have to see the tax returns. I have to see the"
Yeah. I kind of weave in the personal stuff with the business stuff. So, because it's a big part of their life. So if someone's talking, she'll be like, give the music thing, give that as an example. So, I said, well, how did you get in this business then? And then he tells me about his wife. When he met her, she was a hairdresser and he persuaded her because he was an entrepreneur too, persuaded her to set up her own salon. Then it kind of went like that. And then I liked the salon, obviously. I looked around it. I said, oh, she's done a great job. Lots of, compliments because I meant them. I don't say stuff I don't mean. And I said, yeah, I'm really interested. And so the next stage, obviously will be for me to take a look at the numbers. So I just say, "Have you got those, available? Would you need to ask your accountant for them?" So that's kind of it's very a natural thing, to go through. They know why you're there. I mean, it's not
Yeah.
no prize for them.
And then what does the conversation around the deferred look like? David, our mutual friend David Green, he likes to run that joke. It says, "Hey, I called you today. You got this business. You run it for 30 years and you built it to $1,000,000. I've got a great idea. Why don't you give it to me? I'll run it better than you, and I'll just pay you over time. I'm not going to give you money down." When you pitch it like that, it's just not going to work. But that's in essence, that's the pitch. You just got to
Yeah.
add a better flavor and angle to it. What does the conversation look like for you when you're doing these deferred payment structured in the United States, we call them seller finance deals. Everybody calls everything something different. I don't understand. Got a million
We
terms
just
for every single thing.
So yeah, I mean, the one I'm talking to you about now, they'd already been offered a deferred payment deal. And so, I said, what was he offered you? And they told me,
Mhm,
and it was because I would never pay more than a 1.8 multiple. And then I sell them for
mhm,
3 times more. And so I said, "Look, I can match that. That's absolutely fine." So that was easy. I mean, literally given to me. The other one that was done through leverage finance. So basically, we had bounce back loans, during COVID. So people were able to borrow from the government, have a chunk of money, and it was like 2%, paid back. And it was not personal guarantee, it was loan to the company. So the other one, I said, "All right, you could take that money because it wasn't touched." She was going to pay it off. I said, "Don't you dare."
mhm,
I said, "You take that money." I said, "And that's the payment for the fees." Now, the other ones, what happened was I told them, I said to them, look, and it's true. I don't say anything that isn't true. I said, at the current climate, I said, banks aren't lending on these businesses. I mean, we just come out of COVID nightmare. I mean, it was a nightmare for that industry. Banks aren't loaning for this. It's too high a risk. I said, but, I'm willing to take some risk. I said, but you're going to have to take some risk too. and here's what I propose. If for any reason I don't pay any of these payments to you, you take the business right back. So, there's no risk to you in that respect. All right, you may not want the business back, but you haven't lost everything. And then because I'd already done it with another seller, I got them to give me a reference. So I got to speak to the next one and then speak to the next one and so on. So that's kind of how I did it. I said, if that's not something, and I always say this to people, if that's not something that's, palatable for you, what I suggest is you go with a broker. Please don't pay them any money up front. Go with a broker, put it on the market for a year or two. I said, and if someone's got a big bag of cash they want to give you, I said, fair dues, good luck to you. Take that. Take their hands off. But most people don't want to wait 1 or 2 years. They kind of have decided already now I want to start my business. So, it was always no, no, I'll go with you. So that's kind of how I did it.
That's an awesome approach. What does it look like now to reach out to you? I know you're still finishing up the website and you're changing some stuff over, but if somebody hearing you today and said, "You know what? I have a slight turnaround. I'd like to, get some help getting moving back in the right trajectory, and I would like to maybe acquire some other businesses and learn and be beside you, Tina." How would you want them to reach out to you? What's the best way to contact you?
Oh, I guess on my website, sorry, my email. I think I gave you my email.
Mm.
I've got linked. Well, I usually accept any connections as well. I can give you my mobile number if you like. I mean, I don't know if that's sensible to give it out on the internet, but yeah, happy to hear from people.
You're more welcome to give out anything you want. I have your For what I have to put on the show, I do have your email address. You want your LinkedIn on there also, or
Yeah, that would be great. Yeah,
okay.
thank you. But yeah, I'm happy to help you. I don't want to be an owner, but you're more than happy to JV with people, get people over the line, and especially if they're in the hair and beauty industry, show them all my systems, get things running, build up a group. Because I've done it. So yeah,
That'd be a fun one to do too. You could actually help people, do a consulting for equity on your behalf and help them do what you've done with the multiple salons to bring in
yeah,
that general manager to sell it to somebody and to keep that family together.
well,
You could carve off a whole niche of the market just doing that with the hair salons, and you could do it all over the world because you can do it from anywhere that has a Zoom. You're just coaching at
absolutely.
the point. So brilliant.
Yeah,
So last question I always ask everybody just to make sure that we get your key points across. If somebody only could remember 1 or 2 things a day, what would you want them to remember from this interview? What would you want them to walk away with?
rapport is very, very important. And if you haven't got it naturally, then try and build up because it is a skill. Try and build on it. Some people, like you say, have naturally got it, but build on that absolutely. People sell to people they like, and people buy from people they like. That's the way it is. You don't need to go for these massive big companies. Maybe that's a good idea, but if you're finding it difficult, just build up. Small ones around about 500,000. Build up a few of those. So that would be the key ones, I guess, and never give up, obviously. I mean, that we all know that one, but I think my father taught me that, watching him go through several businesses until he found something that worked for him, which he kept until he died. Yeah, never give up.
Awesome, awesome. Well, thank you for being here today. I wanna make sure everybody knows how to reach out to you, so we'll get that out there on the show notes, and it was awesome to have you here and learn from you, and I look forward to, seeing you on the different calls we're on and to seeing you succeed in the world and, helping you anywhere I can.
Thank you so much, Ronald. Thank you so much for inviting me again. Thank you. I enjoyed it
Awesome.
very much.
We call that a show. Hold on for just a second. I want to announce our new channel partners, the ITX Marketplace. Since 1998, ITX has created $5 billion in value by selling more than 225 IT businesses in 20 countries. ITX works exclusively with IT-enabled businesses generating between 5 million and 30 million who are ready to be sold, and M&A decision makers who are ready to buy. For over 25 years, ITX has developed industry knowledge that helps determine whether a seller is a good fit for their buyers before making the match. ITX Mergers and Acquisition Marketplace we have partnered with has a proprietary database of 50,000 plus global buyers seeking IT service firms, managed service providers, Microsoft service providers, software as a service platforms, and channel partners with Microsoft, Oracle, ServiceNow, and the Salesforce space. If you have an IT enabled business you're ready to sell, I want you to visit the itexchangenet.com/marketplace. How to exit. That link will be in the show notes. Visit them now.